Hi. Happy Sunday, fam. Hope you guys are having a beautiful week. It's been a heavy one. Anyone joining us from Southern California, sending a tremendous amount of love and positive energy your way. I know it's incredibly difficult dealing with the staggering loss that you guys are facing. I have many friends and family in the Los Angeles area. I have a home in the Los Angeles area, and I just am speechless at what we're experiencing and what we're seeing right now, playing out in front of our eyes. So just if we may just all send a bunch of love and a bunch of kindness out there, and let's hope and pray for some speedy resolution. And if we can do things to be helpful in that, let's try to do that. All right. So you got an alert as to what we were going to talk about today. And it is based from a book called Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. And if you have ever read that book, I would suggest maybe reading it again and refreshing yourself. And if you have not read that book yet, it is absolutely worth the 30 odd minutes, 40 minutes that it'll take to read. It's just a tiny little thing, and you can get it done very shortly. But it packs an enormous amount of punch, and I believe summarizes so much of the content that I've been studying over the last decade. And because it's just so beautifully written and so simply put, I felt compelled to bring it to the crew today so that we can kind of dissect and think about exactly the implications of what Neville is talking about in this, again, extremely short but powerful book. So I want to begin by addressing, when I do these mindset talks, I do them in a non-denominational sort of capacity where I don't point to or align with any specific dogma or any specific faith. I am a believer. However, I do my part to make this as universal as possible for those who may feel excluded or have had experiences in their life that push them outside of conventional religious frameworks. And I often get messages from not many, but a few that are a little troubling. One of them I recently received, and I'll paraphrase it, but describing some of the conversations that we have around the subject of manifestation and how the mechanics of it work as being anti-God, satanic, witchcraft, and all of the sorts. And so I want to refer you to Matthew 13:12. For those of you who are stuck in these calcified neural pathways, I have no judgment. I just have something to leave for you so that you can think about it. Matthew 13:12 says, For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. And I want you to understand the implications of that statement in Scripture. And it very much describes the manifestation process and the concept that we tend to, or it's more than tend to, we get what we are. We get in life what we are. And if we are in a state where we are not believing in the things that we are striving for and wanting to achieve, that if we lack that faith and the conviction of having it, then we will never have it. Because if we are always in that state of I will versus I am, then we will be in a constant state of not having, right? And that lends to the statement we in life don't get what we deserve, we get what we expect. We get in life what we expect. We don't get what we deserve, we get what we expect. And that's really an interesting phenomenon, because we can be incredibly good people. We can do all kinds of nice things for others. We can be charitable with our time and knowledge and our lives, and we can suffer tremendously. And often we see that and we wonder, why is that? Why do we see really good people suffer? And often what ends up happening in those circumstances is the framework that the person who is enduring incredible amounts of suffering is living in is one of lack, is one of scarcity, is one of expectation of the result. And they tend to live it. And so when we see people who we might look at and say they're not necessarily great people, yet they seem to have all of the trimmings of an incredible life: love, resources, wealth, power, fame, connection, influence. And we wonder, how does life reward an individual with the qualities that we're seeing this person display? Well, the reality is that person expects life to give them that situation. And that's why when they wake up in the morning, they assume what they already believe is true. And so we really have to separate ourselves from the concept of this goodness and evilness and what we believe is right and wrong when we're looking at the framework of manifestation. And I'm not giving that example as a reason or free reign to go out there and be a dick in life, right? I'm not at all condoning behavior that is predatory, mean, or at all abusive. The reality is because the framework in which you believe is constantly being shown to you in your life, you can be a total son of a bitch and believe of yourself to have great power, great influence, great wealth, great resources, and you will wake up and have those things. The spoiler alert for all of us is that if we live in a movie that we already know the ending of, then no matter what happens, it'll always be the same. Now, think of this, right? You're watching a movie for the first time, and I just got to experience this with my kid over the winter break. We went to go watch Mufasa together, and it was a fun show. I highly recommend it for all of you parents out there, and even those of you who don't have little kids, go and watch it. It's really fun. So my daughter and I go and watch Mufasa, and we didn't know what was going to happen, and so the first, and I promise not to spoil it, but you guys already know because you've watched Lion King already. You know what goes on in this story, right? So it doesn't really matter. But we're watching this movie, and in the first few minutes, it's like gut punch, right? It's like just like you expect Disney to do. It's just going to make you feel like so sad in the first 5 minutes. Like it's like, dang it, sucks. So we go and watch this, and it is just an incredible ride. It's a roller coaster, up and down. Our emotions are tumbling all over the place, and of course, you get to the end of the movie and you're just like, wow, that's so cool, so great. And you have this resolution, this really nice tie up of all of the events that transpired in the movie. And we enjoyed the movie so much that we decided that we were going to invite her little brother and her little sister to watch the movie again with us the following day. And so we do that. We invite her little brother and sister, and we take them to go watch Mufasa again. And now her and I have already seen the movie. Right now, as we're watching the movie, her little brother and her little sister are getting stressed out, right? They're totally getting stressed out at some of the things that are going on in the movie. They're like, oh my goodness, so-and-so is going to die, or so-and-so is going to get lost. And oh my, this is terrible. And what are we going to do? But her and I had already seen the movie. And so no matter what they were experiencing in their seats as they're watching the events unfold, Charisma and I both knew exactly how the movie ended. And even though there were times when you thought all hope was lost and everything was just going to go into a complete disaster, total tailspin, the movie ended the exact same way it ended the first time we watched it. And how could it not? Right? Because the movie is the movie. The framework has already been laid, it's already been recorded. And no matter what we do, no matter how much we want, no matter what we try, it doesn't matter how much like intention and thought and emotion and all that, we can throw anything we want at the screen and it's not going to change what is going to take place in the movie, because it's already done, it's already written, it's already shot, it's already produced, it's already filmed, it's already on display. And that is the concept of how we need to live. And that is what Neville Goddard is talking about in his book, The Secret is Feeling. And so when we apply this to the Hermetic principle of the law of correspondence, many of you have maybe seen one of the conversations we've had on the Hermetic principles. The law of correspondence, as within, so without, as above, so below. As within, so without is the one that we are going to focus on today. As within, so without. And the concept of what is happening inside of you is what is being outpictured outside of you. And if you want to have an understanding of the contents of your feelings, the contents of your thoughts, the contents of what you're actually subconsciously believing of yourself in your life right now, just take a look. I want you to just take a look. And take a look at the relationships that you're in. Take a look at the financial condition that you're living in. Take a look at the home you live in. Take a look at the money in your bank account. Take a look at the connections that you have with people. Look at the reality of what is being outpictured in your life. And that will tell you the contents of your thoughts and feelings of yesterday. That's what it is. So how you thought and felt yesterday, and by yesterday I mean the past, how you thought and felt in the past is being shown to you today. And that is incredibly powerful because it gives us a framework on how to adjust for tomorrow. Because if we want tomorrow to be a different outpicturing, we need to change the contents of how we think and how we feel today. And, you know, I've said these similar concepts many times, but sometimes we got to keep hearing them in different angles or in different capacities for them to really sink in. And what Neville talks about is the law of assumption. And I want to read to you verbatim what the law of assumption is. And the law of assumption states that what you believe to be true about yourself and your life, essentially, all of your assumptions will ultimately shape your reality and the experiences, meaning that by actively focusing on your beliefs and desires, you manifest them into your life. All right, I'm going to repeat that again. The law of assumption states that what you believe to be true about yourself and your life, essentially all of your assumptions, will ultimately shape your reality and experiences, meaning that by actively focusing on your beliefs and desires, you can manifest them into your life. And so when we have negative thoughts, negative feelings in our world, and we allow those to perpetuate and to persist, we are signing for ourselves the outpicturing of what our tomorrow will look like. And so it's extremely important for us to be mindful of the thoughts and feelings that we have today, because if we expect or want a better tomorrow, then there is no way to produce that if we don't make the change in our state today. The change in our state. And I want to share with you guys a story of a friend that I have or had here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm going to leave him nameless. Some of you might have heard this story before. And if you have, you can just follow along. And many of you who haven't heard it before, you'll understand why I'm telling it in a moment. And so I meet this gentleman in Phoenix, Arizona about 7 years ago. And I meet him outside of a house, and seems on the surface to be just incredibly jolly guy, really, really nice person. And I'm showing him a property, a wholesale deal that I'm wanting to sell the contract on. And within the first 5 minutes of meeting this individual, I start to hear a story of what this person's life has been. And they were very willing to share with me, you know, the circumstances that they've been going through. And what he was explaining was that his wife had gotten cancer. And unfortunately, after a 2-year battle with cancer, she passed away, leaving him a widow with 4 children. And that was a really tough story to hear, because this guy was essentially my age. And as I'm looking at him and I'm, seeing just the pain in his eyes and the way that he's now moving and walking, and, the whole demeanor, his entire form shifted from when I first met him, and he was standing upright and shaking my hand with a firm grip and being, really jovial with a big smile. And then a few minutes later, it was into the tragedy. We were into the story of his life. And like, if you read Romeo and Juliet, no matter how many times you read the story of Romeo and Juliet, at the end of the story, they die, right? At the end of the story. And it doesn't matter how many times we reimagine Shakespeare or how many times we reimagine the story of Romeo and Juliet, at the end of that story, they die. And much is the same of the way that we live our lives. If we lay a track in our mind, and that track, let's just imagine it to be a railroad track. If we lay a railroad track in our mind of a certain thought pattern or a certain way of being, and we put a train on that track and we set that train off, that train is going to drive around in that track. And it would be insane of us to think that that train will go in any different direction, that it'll switch direction, that it'll move in a new way. It would be absolutely ludicrous to think that that train will do anything but go on that track. Now, what we tend to do in life is we take those trains and we take things off the train. We say, you know what, this train is carrying wheat. Wheat is the problem. And so we're going to change what the train is carrying. We're going to put gold into the train. And if we put gold into the train and we let the train go, the train won't go in that circle anymore. It'll change directions. And we're hoping, we're doing everything we can, and we change. We take all the wheat off the train, we put gold onto the train, and then we watch. And the train does the same thing. It goes in a circle. And we take the gold off the train and we say, you know what, man, it must have been the gold. It's probably a little bit too heavy. Maybe it was just not giving it the dynamics that it needed in order for it to shift direction. So wheat was too light, gold was too heavy. Let's fill the train with wood. And so they fill the train with wood, and they get really, really excited. They get really expectant that it's going to be different this time. The train is going to go in a different direction, and away it goes. And that's what it is. It's doing the exact same thing. It follows the same track, and it would be insane to think that anything else would change. And so my friend, as he's telling the story of his wife who passed away, was reveling in the tragedy of it. And for the first year of my relationship with this gentleman, every time I heard the story, I had the same feeling. It was sorrow. It was sympathy, empathy. And I was doing everything and anything I could to try to be helpful to this person. And I would bring this person business. I would reward this person with favor. I would do everything that I could to give this person benefit because of the amount of guilt that I felt for having a life that didn't resemble his tragedy. If I'm being fully transparent here, I helped him because I was so glad I wasn't him. For real. I felt guilted into continuing to be helpful and generous to a point where it was not warranted. And so what this person was doing, as I learned over the years that I got to know them, was that story became the track. It became the record that they played in every relationship that they had. And again, because it was a tragic story, a tragic song, a tragic track, the same thing would go on. And all of the people that this person would meet would feel the exact same guilt. They would feel the exact same emotions. He was triggering the same responses from all of the people that he would interact with because they were all watching the same movie. We were all going down the same line that he was taking us on. And what ended up happening is while we were watching the movie, he was picking all of our pockets. And it would happen over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. You'd get into a deal with this guy, and you would, let's just say he brings you a wholesale deal, and you're like, yeah, I'll take it. And he'll say, okay, I'm going to send you over an assignment. You get the assignment, and you sign the assignment. And he's like, I'll say, where do I send the EMD to? And he's like, you know what? This one's going to be a little bit different. We don't know which title company it's going to be. Just make the $5,000 check blank. I'll come pick it up from you, and I'll deposit it in the right title company as soon as I know which one it is. And a few days later, you find out that it's the title company of his name. And all of a sudden you ask, hey, man, what's going on with this EMD? How come it got written out to you? Oh, don't worry. Our contract had the earnest money being released to me, immediately. Totally fine. I'll keep you posted. Hey, man, I want to know what title company we're dealing with on this thing, because I'm trying to figure out where I got to send loan docs to. My hard money lender wants to know what's going on with this, with this deal, where the title company is. Hey, man, can you answer your phone? I've been trying to get a hold of you for the last 5 days, and I don't know what title company I'm supposed to be dealing with on this thing. You took the earnest money, so I can't even trace back where that's going to. Can you give me a call back? Closing date would pass. $5,000 would be gone. 10 days later, you call the guy, he picks up the phone, and you're like, dude, what the F are you doing, man? Where's my $5,000 and where's the deal? Listen, man, I'm really sorry. It's really tough what I'm going through. I got these 4 kids. My wife died cancer, man. It was really hard, and it's always been hard, and it's been a real struggle for me to deal with all of this time. And I just, I'm really sorry about that, man. I promise I'm going to get you that $5,000 back. But hey, dude, thanks for understanding, and I'll get you later. And we would do this dance over and over and over again. And it wasn't just me. It was every person that this person dealt with. It was the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And, the reality is that he was still a really nice guy, right? Like a totally nice person. When you meet him, you go out and have a few beers with the guy, and you're like, this guy's cool, he's jovial, and he's got a lot of jokes and all the things. And there was a lot of positivity, a lot of good things that this guy had. Great personality in some regard. And again, at the end of the day, at the end of the deal, it was always the same thing, right? There would be something shady, something untoward. You would take a loss. He would disappear. You would reach back out, and you'd be like, dude, what the hell? And he'd be like, man, my wife, she died of cancer. And I got these 4 kids, dude, and it's really hard for me to take care of them. And so, about that $5,000 that I just took from you? I'll get you back next time. And it wasn't just me, right? It's so many people that were going through this. And as people started to reach out and kind of talk to each other, we were all realizing it was the same thing. And so, again, you kind of take your step back from a person like this, but it's hard because there's a magnetism to energy like that, right? They kind of suck you into their vortex, and it's not always bad. Sometimes they do a good deal here and there, and sometimes there is a good situation that you get to participate in. And I don't want to just pretend like everything that I ever did with this guy ended up in a loss or a theft. I'd say 50% of them ended up in a loss or a theft. 50% of them ended up okay. Overall, in the grand scheme of my relationship with them, I would say I'm probably even, but it was a roller coaster nonetheless. Anyhow, moving forward on this story, during COVID, we're all glued to our computers and social media, and I see a post that he makes, and he announces to the world that his son now has cancer. And, he really wants everybody that he might have had a situation with in the past to bury it, to let it go. Now everybody's got to stand up and be there for him and his kids, because his wife, she died of cancer, and he's got these 4 kids that he needs to take care of. And one of them now has cancer as well. And so there should be a decent bone in your body and some sympathy and empathy within you. And if you have these feelings and these emotions, then you would do the right thing. And the next deal that you have under contract, you would send it my way. And this essentially was the pattern. This essentially was the pattern of how this went, right? And so I got sucked into the trap again, right? I feel all of this guilt for not being him, for not having a child with cancer, for not having a wife who passed away. And so I find an opportunity and I send it to him. And it ends the same way. Another lost deal, another lost money. I'm not the only one who dealt with this. I'm seeing some of you guys had mentioned that Jerry Norton had a situation with this individual and, outed him all over YouTube. That's the same person. I don't want to say the individual's name because he does have 4 kids. And these 4 kids might be watching this. And I don't want them to have a negative opinion. But I also want them to understand the reality of how this operation went. And what ended up happening, to put a button on it, is this person thrived in the energy of that emotion. The expectation, the track that he laid in his mind was a tragedy. And I, at some level, believe that he lived for the tragedy. He lived for the chemicals that were created in his body through the tragedy. Every time he told himself the same sad story, he felt the same sad chemicals. And that's where he enjoyed life. And that's where he felt homeostasis. That's where he felt his comfort zone. And any joy, he'd have to pull himself back into that sorrow. And if he was in deep sorrow, it was greatness because he was closer to his baseline than if he was feeling happy. How this ends is there was a post that he makes on social media, and he says, "Hey, I have to go in for surgery today. My having a routine gallbladder removal." And, even though I've had all of these situations happen in my life, as you guys know, my wife, she died of cancer, and I have these 4 kids, one of whom has cancer. And I want everybody to know that I don't want you to feel bad for me. I don't want you to, think like, oh, poor guy. But send me some good vibes because I'm going to go have this surgery today. And doesn't my hair look good? And his hair looked incredible, by the way. Whoever cut his hair the day before his surgery did a bang-up job. And he never ends up coming out of that surgery. He ends up passing away in his 40s during that surgery, or a little bit after that surgery, actually. He comes out of the surgery, he gets an infection, and then he dies. And as I'm watching this thing play out, right, I realized that the track, again, that this person made, the movie that this guy wrote, no matter how we looked at it, no matter how much we wanted the movie to change while we're watching the movie wasn't going to change because the script was written. And he was playing the script out day after day after day. He was playing it out. And not only was he the star, but he was making his kids the star. He was making us all a part of the audience and the extras in his show. And the show was a great tragedy. The show was a great tragedy. But it was one that I feel was an important one for me to watch because it showed me the reality of what it looks like to play a sad song over and over and over again. And if you play the same sad song over and over and over again, you are going to get the sad result. So the question is what is the track that you are playing right now, right? What are you allowing yourself to feel on a daily basis? And the promise that I made before we got on to today's call was that you can make these adjustments. You can make these changes in as little as 3 days. 3 days. And so I want to share an experiment that recently happened where they, in a petri dish, they took human neurons. And I don't know how many of you guys are old enough or to remember this game that one of the first video games ever made. Actually, I want to take a survey in the chat. Who has an idea of what the first video game was that was ever made? Who has an idea of what the first video game was that was ever made? Let me know in the chat. Pong. Yes. Very good. Pong. Frogger. Pac-Man. It was Pong. It was Pong. All right. So Pong, the first video game that's ever made. It was made in the 70s. Great game and super simple and also like super dumb, right? But great. And so what they did is they had these neurons in a petri dish. And neurons have these things called dendrites. Okay, now if you think of my hand or my arm as a neuron, okay, let's think of my arms as neurons, okay? Now if my two arms are neurons and these two need to connect to each other, right? They would connect to each other through these little things, these little fingers that come off of the neurons, and they're called dendrites. Okay, and these dendrites typically will share chemical information between each other to activate each other. So one neuron can communicate with another neuron through a synapsis through the dendrites of the neuron. Okay, sorry for the science lesson, but I just need to explain this to you so you guys can understand why this is important. So what these scientists do is they take these neurons and put them in a petri dish, and they take a chip, a microchip, and they attach these neurons to the microchip by the dendrites. Okay, so now these two neurons are communicating in this petri dish with this microchip, and the microchip was the game Pong. All right. Now, what's interesting is you would imagine that if these things really don't understand what the hell Pong is, they're inanimate. Well, I mean, they're neurons, and so there's some form of life there, but they're not conscious in what we would expect conscious to be. And so these neurons are playing Pong, and you would imagine that how they would play Pong would just be completely random, but it wasn't. They were learning, and they were getting better and better and better and better. And they're now, again, these things are not attached to a person. They're not attached to anything, right? But where the hell are they getting the information from to become better at the game? Where are they getting the information from to become better at the game? Where is it coming from? They're not reading a manual. No one is screaming at the dendrites or at the neurons saying, go up, the ball's going up. It's not how it works. And these neurons are getting better and 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 better. And so what they realized is that the neurons were actually extracting the information from the field. And I've talked about it many times before, but the quantum field, the unified field, the field of all potentiality, the field where all is possible, where all things exist, where all information exists. And if you've ever watched stories of near-death experiences, or people who have had some sudden shock, or they have like a fall and they smack their head and they go into a coma, and you can see examples of this on, the internet, YouTube, TV, medical journals, the American Journal of Psychology, like all of these different mediums share similar recants of recollection, of what this phenomenon is, where all of a sudden somebody gets hit in the head, they're in a coma for 7 days, and they come out and they're speaking Japanese. And they've never been to Japan. They've never read Japanese. They don't even like ramen. But they come out of a coma, and all of a sudden they're speaking Japanese. And they speak fluent Japanese. And they know ancient Japanese words that you wouldn't know in Japanese unless you studied a form of ancient Japanese. But they're speaking Japanese perfectly, and they're speaking ancient Japanese. It's crazy. So where is the Japanese coming from? How are they even learning this? And you've got hundreds, thousands of examples of this where people have some kind of a head injury or something goes on, and they go into the subconscious, they go into that field of full potentiality, and they take some information out of it, and then they come out and it's outpictured into the world. Where is the explanation of that? Well, again, it is what's happening in the field. And this is what is going to tie this entire conversation together. Because what you're feeling, the emotions that you are displaying, are what is communicating with the field. All right. Your emotions are what's communicating with the field. And so when you are in prayer, when you are closing your eyes and you are communicating with our creator, or you're communicating with the field. In Mark 11:24-26, it is said, therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and you shall have them. Again, believe that you have them. You got to have the feeling of having it. You have to assume that it is yours, and you have to do so with a level of faith that is unshakable. And that's what brings me to the law of three, and why you can do this in a matter of 3 days. Now, if you want something in your life, if you're looking for a better relationship, if you're looking for more money, if you're looking for more wholesale deals, if you want a scaled, more systemized business, you're looking for the love of your life, you're looking for something effing different, then what you need to do. Oh, and by the way, sorry, I want to explain. I needed to share this part. This was the one piece that I missed. Those neurons that I was talking about that learned how to play Pong, guess how many days it took them to do that? 3 days. 3 days. And we see the number 3 get repeated over and over and over again, from the Holy Trinity to comedy, the law of three, always happens in threes, right? And so what Neville Goddard says is, in order for you to bring to your life the change, the expected change of your feeling, it will take you 3 days to assume that state of consciousness, to assume that state of belief. And so it's not going to be something that you're going to do overnight. It's not going to be something that you're going to do in the moment, but it can be something that you can do over the next 3 days. And here is the process and how one would do it. There are two of the most powerful times of the day that you have available to you to insert into your life a program shift, a new script, a new agenda, a new feeling. The first is within the first 30 minutes of your day. From the moment you open your eyes, for the next 30 minutes, you are the most susceptible. The door between the conscious and the subconscious mind is open. And that is where you have the ability to input a new belief and a new feeling. And you are communicating with that field of potentiality, the field that informs all of our manifest reality. And if you communicate the desired wish, the desired goal, the outpicturing of the thing that you're looking for, and you adopt that sensation, that feeling of absolute reality without a shadow of a doubt, that in so doing, for 3 days, you will achieve a full state shift in consciousness. Now, again, that's the first 30 minutes of your day. And the next most powerful 30 minutes of the day are the 30 minutes before you go to sleep. And again, when you are right before falling asleep, your door between the conscious and the subconscious mind is open, and you are impressionable. And you're probably the most impressionable that you are in the entire day, outside of the first 30 minutes that you wake up in the morning. And so the content, the emotions, the thoughts that you are feeding yourself 30 minutes before you go to sleep are of extreme importance, because it is going to dictate what happens for the next 6 to 8 hours of your life while you're asleep. That information that you're injecting into there is swimming in that field of potentiality. Now, what is it that we typically do in real life? We wake up, we look at our phone, and we start seeing all of the things, all of the problems, all of the things that are drawing us away from our happiness. All of the stuff we got to do today that we don't want to do. All of the problems that we have to deal with that we don't want to have to deal with. All of the BS that we got to go through that we don't need. And then we move into our day in that state of emotional degradation. And before we go to bed, many of us, and I've done this myself, fall asleep watching television, right? We have a TV show on. And let's be honest, right? The content of today's entertainment is not wholesome for the most part. It's pretty vile, and it's scary and traumatic and full of messaging that is disempowering and fearful. And so we inject these scripts of fear into our subconscious mind before we go to bed so that we can play that script out while we're sleeping for 6 to 8 hours. And so that our emotional state that we're enjoying in our most vulnerable time is a nightmare. And we're willingly doing this to ourselves. And we could literally change our entire lives by affecting the first 30 minutes of our day and the last 30 minutes of our day, so that during the day that we are awake and moving, we are living out a new script. And every single time that you are interacting in the day, the inner conversation that you should be having with yourself is that of having all that you have desired in the state that you desire, right? So let me say that to you again in more plain English. If you want that thing, feel that you have that thing all effing day long. Live like you have that thing all effing day long. And that will show itself in so many ways. From the decisions you make on how you spend money, to the things you do, to what you eat, to what you wear, to how you interact with people. Every little decision that you're making is being informed with the reality of whether you have or don't have what you desire. And so if you're walking around in life acting as if you don't have enough, and all you're doing then is confirming that script of not having enough, of being in lack, of being in scarcity. But if you are living all day as if you already have the thing that you desire, then every decision that you make, from how you treat people, to what you give, to what you eat, to what you wear, will be affected and informed by that reality. How would you talk to yourself if all of the things that you wanted happened? How would you address yourself? How would you look at yourself in the mirror? What are the words that you would say? How would you expect to be treated by the people that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis? How would your wife or your husband look at you if you were that badass that got the things done that you said that you were going to do? And so are you living from the point of I will or I am? Are you living from the point of view of I will or I am? Because if you change your feelings, you will change your destiny. And the reality is that your patterns, if you want to know what your destiny is, just take a look at what you've been doing. Look at the track. Remember, it doesn't matter what we change on the train. If the track is going in one direction, you're going in that direction until the day you die, unless you change something. You have to change the track. And our subconscious mind is the only way that we are able to change destiny. If we change the way we feel, we change the life we live. And those patterns are creating your life on a day-to-day basis, whether you like it or not. It's interesting because I used to find myself, and I've always been open with you guys about some of the things that I've struggled with. And of course, my, personal habits have been probably the most real things that I've struggled with in my life, right? From alcoholism to my weight, the things that you guys have seen me kind of deal with, right? And I've been real about it with you guys. And so when I look back at the desire to, drink alcohol, and I think about what the track that I was on, right? The track that I was driving on or riding on all the time. And I used to think, right, when I was struggling with that if, my life just got better, if I just made some more money, maybe if my family looked at me in a different way, maybe if I lived in a nicer home and I slept in a more comfortable bed and I had a better environment and my friends were cooler, like famous people or like important people. And if I had this like better life, I would probably not drink so much. right? Because I'd be this better dude. I would have a better situation. But all I was doing and wanting that, and considering sitting there thinking like, well, only what if that was true, then I wouldn't need this stuff, because then I wouldn't need to feel better from the bottle. But I was riding a track that was going in one direction, and it was not going to change no matter what I did different if I didn't change the track. Right? I had to change the direction of the track in order for the train to be going in another way. And if you're looking at your life right now and you're seeing a specific track that you're driving on, to think that it is going to go a different way without any change in feeling is insanity. So if you've had any sense of feeling that you are deserving of more, that you have a life that is waiting for you to live, that there's a version of you that has everything that you've ever wanted, it exists. It exists in that field that taught the neurons how to play Pong. All the potentials are there. The problem is, if you go to bed as the person who's not living that life, when you wake up in the morning, you're not going to be the person living that life. So what Neville suggests is a dramatic shift in state, from mining the contents of our thought to changing the conversations that we have within ourselves throughout the day, and being mindful of those conversations, to immediately change, to immediately rectify a thought pattern or an inner dialogue that is not serving your desired state, to immediately shift that into one that aligns with or reinforces your desired outcome, and to be extremely mindful of that time before we sleep, to input into our subconscious minds emotions that reinforce the life that we are trying to live. And that if we do that over a pattern of 3 days, that we will set forth in motion forces invisible to us that we cannot stop. That your life will be, the seed will be planted for your life, and that the outpicturing or the plant sprouting is impossible not to achieve. And so treat this as an experiment, right? Wake up in the morning for the next 3 days, and the first thing that you should do is embody the emotion of the state that you desire. Gratitude. Give thanks for all that you have, for everything that's in your life right now that is beautiful and whole. And before you go to sleep, feed yourself with that same emotion, those same thoughts of wholeness, of gratitude, of being all that you want to be in your life. And try it for 3 days. Friends, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? Right? It's 3 days out of your life. You want to wake up into a different world? You want to shift timelines? It's not going to happen on the track you're on right now. And I say that to you, and I say it to myself. I have so much I still want to do in my life. And there's no chance for me to do the things that I want to do in my life riding the same train I'm riding. And so I'll do the same thing with you. For the next 72 hours, I'm on a strict morning and evening fast of information that is negative. I am only going to allow myself to bathe in the feelings of gratitude, of wholeness, and of love. And I will embody the state of my desired future. And let's see what happens over the next year for you and for me. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Sunday. I hope you guys got some value out of this. And if you did, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And if there's somebody in your life that you want to see or have this message. Do them and yourself an act of good karma and share this message with them. Share this video with them and let them know that you love them and you want for them to have all that they would ever want in their life to happen. Till next Sunday, guys, be well, take care of each other, and I'll see you then.